Hello and good evening. Thank you once again for joining us here at the Portis Corner. This is your podcast from your friend Juan and Shernette. We are from Noyes Associates. We are a firm of immigrants for immigrants.
Yes. Good night and welcome. As one says, we are a firm of immigrants for immigrants. We all have our own immigrant story, and we try to encourage our viewers to be educated about the immigration process and take action. So here we are again. You can ask your questions. We are live on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So we're here to just talk about immigration and talk about the stuff that we do see. Like today was a really special day here at Noyes and Associates because we had a client who was a victim of abuse, and we filed a VAWA. But because she had been through so many different situations, her trust in the legal process was gone. She didn't have faith or trust that we could help her because others has deceived her by fraud and so forth. But today, about what, 2 weeks ago, her mom passed away, and she hadn't been back to her home country in 20 years. But today we were able to call her and just tell her, like, we have your work permit. And she broke down and she broke my heart. Like, she really made me cry just to see how she was grateful and thankful that she actually took the step to address their issue. And those stories makes the day more rewarding when we're able to help families, changing lives. How was your experience with just the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we oftentimes feel that, working immigration nowadays is like a roller coaster.
Yeah,
It's a mixture of good news and bad news. There's so much disinformation that's going on out there. And this is kind of why we have this space.
that's true.
This is a space to discuss educational information, to inspire you with stories of success and difficulties, and ultimately to have you be in control of your future. This is not a time to play around, to wait to find out. I mean, we hear it all, and we oftentimes, you know, speak about keeping families together.
Yes.
And now more than ever, it is crucial that you spend your time, that you invest in yourself to gather the resources necessary to make sure that you're safe. If you are not safe in the United States, the entire stability of your family can be affected. So it was very rewarding, to have to just see how much this meant to her,
Yes.
and it was definitely great to see.
It was. It was really good to see that even in the midst of everything that's going on, um, people or cases are still being worked on. Because I know people will be like, oh, I had one consultation with a lady say, oh, I heard that they stopped doing VAWA cases or they stopped doing cases. But that's not true. Immigration is still working. They're still accepting cases, they're processing cases, they're still doing interview, they're still doing everything that they're supposed to do. They may have a little longer time because they're doing more vetting, but the process is still going. So don't just go by the misinformation that you hear or see about what's going on in immigration. Don't let that be a fear and stop you from seeking out help.
It is, and it's. I saw someone today posted. I mean, that this is like where it's really not helpful at all.
Yeah.
As we know, Trump requested from the IRS
Yeah.
to share information on people who, file taxes with their ITIN, the individual taxpayer identification number. And there are people now advising people not to file taxes.
I know, but then it's like you already have an I-10. And one of the process with I-10 is that, hmm, sorry, I can't see.
Somebody wants to co-host.
Yeah, like two other people want to co-host.
What does that mean? No. Nope. So,
But the thing is, right, with ITIN, we do have to give our passport. Well, we said we, but when an immigrant apply for an ITIN, you have to give your passport or some form of foreign identification to verify your identity, and that is stored in record. So even if you didn't file your taxes, and if, as what they were saying in the media, where President Trump administration want IRS to release those information to ICE, they already have all your information. So if you didn't file taxes this year, doesn't stop them from getting access to your information because it's already there in the system, because you already provided that information when you first applied. Because remember, one of the processes, they take your passport, verify that information, and then mail it back to you. So I would say, don't just live in fear, because that's what a lot of people want us to be doing right now, is living in fear. And I would say fear it's not our friend.
it really is not, but information is key at this
Yes.
point. I mean, we do have a lot of people who, they're very frustrated. We oftentimes talk about this, the fact that a lot of people choose to wait until last minute to want to do something about their immigration status, and there's a mistake. We have a lot of families, that are detained right now,
Yeah.
and it's very stressful when you try to help someone once they're behind bars, because of the cost constraints, the timing, and families are very, very desperate. So it's a responsibility of everyone to seek some kind of help, to seek some kind of solution, not to wait and find out. I mean, we had people who say, "Hey, I'm going to wait these next 4 years, and hopefully, Trump will be gone, and then I'll be fine." And that's a mistake. You got to make sure that you stay ahead of the game, that you seek some help, and that you are able to protect your family. So here at Noyes Associates, we tell our families that we have 3 options that we can help you navigate.
Yes.
The first option is to fight to stay here in the United States.
Yes.
We also are upfront with people, and we let them know, listen, maybe it's time to plan for you to go back home. Let's develop some kind of financial plan in which you can leave. And as we have seen, the Trump administration now has the CBP Home app, which allows immigrants to self-deport or arrange for their I-94 or their exit from the United States. And the third option, which we're helping families manage, is to go to Canada, which is, again, going to Canada is all about work immigration, pretty much being able to migrate into Canada if you do not have any legal avenues here in the United States. So we are working with a Canadian attorney that can help our clients, our families navigate that step.
Yes, because it's like Canada have other options. Just like the U.S., Canada also has the option where you can do an investor visa. So there are other options. So say, for example, you have a construction company here, a landscaping business, but you're not able to get your status here in the U.S., but you don't want to go back home. Maybe you can explore that option to go to Canada, talk to a Canadian attorney and say, hey, I have a business in the U.S., I have this much in assets. Is there a process for me to be able to migrate to Canada? If there is, how can I go about doing that? Because that's just like any country. They have different ways you can get into that country legally. And it's just about learning that option and making informed choice based upon the information knowledge. But I don't even know how to say it, because we see so much in the media. We've known about the Lake and Raleigh Act, where if you're an immigrant in this country and you get into some encounter with the police, whether it's for misdemeanor shoplifting or an assault in a law enforcement officer, that act pretty much kind of put that place where they say you can be arrested and deported.
And that is absolutely, the topic that the team wanted us to discuss with you guys. We're going to be sharing the screen shortly. and discussing the Lincoln Riley Act. As you can see here on the screen, for those of you who are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, you'll be able to see from the National Immigration Project information on the Lincoln Riley Act. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and then we can go ahead and discuss. So, so obviously this was before Trump signed it. Now it's law. It was a congressional proposal that was since been passed into law. And what it does is that generally it makes two changes when it comes to current immigration laws. First, certain immigrants who are accused of certain crimes like shoplifting, assaulting a law enforcement officer will be detained by ICE without an opportunity to seek release in immigration court while their case is pending. So under this act, a person does not have to be convicted of a crime to be forced into mandatory detention. Even an arrest based on a false accusation of someone admitting that they committed a crime could be enough to detain them indefinitely until the immigration case is over.
Yeah, and one other thing we had a consultation with that similar situation where the guy said his friend was wrongfully accused of was it shoplifting? I believe, but he was wrongfully accused, and his case is still pending in state court. But he was detained by ICE, and they're holding him mandatory detention because of the Lincoln Riley Act.
So, and as it turned out, what really happened was, allegedly, because until obviously everything kind of unfolds, but this is you could see how it can happen. Allegedly, this gentleman loaned money to someone else, and because that person didn't want to pay them, they pretty much called immigration on them and fabricated charges. Said that they trespassed into the property, that they took some items, so whether it's theft or larceny, whatever the case may be, that was grounds to detain this gentleman because, again, he didn't have any immigration status. So we got to be very careful. It is we could see how something like that could happen, but you have to have evidence and proof to set you free. And unfortunately, with the Lincoln Riley Act, is very restrictive. Just merely being accused, without even being convicted, without even being sentenced, without even seeing a judge, you may be obligated to mandatory detention. And we have known, and we're actually going to be going at the end of this month to an activity with the state of Connecticut where they're talking about how they're going to help families as far as immigration efforts. There's been a pushback between the Trump administration, the federal government, and the state government that the state government has to comply with requests from the federal government.
Yeah, and then so the Lincoln Riley Act kind of, for example, in Connecticut, contradict with Connecticut State Trust Act, because Connecticut has a trust act where certain crimes is not reported to ICE by the police department, whereas with the Lincoln Riley Act, it's telling the states like, if the person, it doesn't matter if it's for a shoplifting, they were just accused and arrested, like we can come in and take this person. You're supposed to notify us about this individual who is committing this type of crime. Whereas in Connecticut Trust Act, certain crimes or arrests does not rise to the occasion for the police department to notify ICE of an immigrant or a non-immigrant who's being arrested or detained.
And obviously, the second part of the Lincoln Riley Act is that it gives states broad ability to sue the federal government over immigration decisions that the states do not like. For example, under the law, states can go to court to force immigration agencies to continue detaining or deporting someone. There may actually be legal challenges, again, to the Lincoln Riley Act. And it is possible that the law may be narrowed or struck down by the courts. Regardless, obviously implemented, the Lincoln Riley Act would expand, immigration detention to over 250%. Instead of being with their families and communities while navigating their immigration case, tens of thousands of people could spend months or even years locked in jail without the opportunity of being released. So mandatory detention. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So mandatory detention is that under mandatory detention, ICE the government and ICE can detain you until a judge made a final decision. So if you're going through the process, the judge decide that you're removable and order you remove. They will hold you until that date. So if your court date, normally when you're detained, the cases move a little bit much faster. So you maybe about for 6 or 9 months, you'll be detained for that period of time. And then if you are order removed, but you appeal that decision, and if the appeal court takes another 6 or 9 months, you're still detained until a final decision is made if you appeal the judge's decisions. So that's with mandatory detention. You're not eligible for a bond. You have to stay detained until the court makes a decision, whether to grant your case, close your removal case, or order you removed.
Now, the next segment here is who will the Laken-Riley Act primarily impact?
Well, based upon what I had read first, it was more about like theft crimes, shoplifting, burglary, like larceny, an assault, and then if you're assaulting law enforcement officers. Like, those were mostly what the Laken-Riley Act is all about. Those were the particular crimes. And most of the times, in some states, certain burglaries are misdemeanors. So it's not a felony, and so those charges would be considered sometimes a crime against moral turpitude. Sometimes it's not an aggravated felony. So that's what the most of it's always about.
So, burglary, again, somebody breaking and entering with the intention of committing a crime inside, or theft or larceny, which means stealing or taking someone's property without permission, but obviously can vary from state to state.
Yeah.
Shoplifting, which means that the type of theft or larceny committed against retail stores, but it can vary based on situations. Assault of law enforcement officers, any crime that results in death or serious bodily injury to another person. And of course, now what we're seeing a rise is in DUI arrests, whether it's for marijuana or driving under the influence. We have seen a lot of those instances here at the offices of late.
Yes. The thing is, right, and most of the time we see so many people with different criminal arrests, and people are wondering, how is this going to affect my immigration case? I'm a green card holder. I had this DUI, or I have this arrest. How is it affecting my case based upon the Laken-Riley Act? It going to varies. And as my husband Juan read the definitions, it's very state by state. Most of the definitions I can give is Connecticut, because we're in the state of Connecticut. I will know more about Connecticut local laws than I would know about New York or any other state. It's just that the statute, I believe the law itself everything is to put fear. Again, it's like putting fear in us and fear in people, to not address what you would say, like the pink elephant in the room, which is your immigration status. We always say, learn, be educated, be informed. Call an attorney. If you went to one 10 years ago, call another one and see what other option. Maybe the attorney you went 10 years ago, something changed in your life since then. Or maybe they didn't ask certain questions that could impact their decision to say you may be eligible for something else.
Yes, and this is why it's so important if you have any family or friends, anyone who needs immigration help, the best advice you can give them is to seek help. It's really, disheartening as we're seeing all this negative news, all this disinformation out there is always telling you what to do, which is the wrong thing to do, versus telling you to seek help. That should be what should become viral. That should be the conversation people are having. But unfortunately, you'll get people that will say, we were discussing earlier, don't pay your taxes.
Or don't travel.
Don't travel. However, people don't know that for years, good moral character has been one of the most important aspects of the immigration process, proving that you are a person who's contributing. And the best way to do it is financially through paying your taxes, because that could lead to other consequences. The same way with proving lawful presence. There has been many reforms and many clients that we can prove that they were present here in the U.S. because they were paying their taxes. So telling people not to pay their taxes is a huge mistake. In the same way as we were discussing, and maybe we could do this now next week. We did it already for the Spanish audience, where we did the USCIS registry, like a mock follow through of all the questions and how to go about creating the account and responding, which is a very tedious process.
Yeah.
But it's mandatory.
Yeah, that is true because it's the alien registration. That is also something that is mandatory. If you're here in the U.S. undocumented, you came in without inspection, came through the border, you have to register for the Alien Registration Act. It is a very long process and tedious because it asks you a lot of information. Have you ever been arrested? It asks a lot of. I thought it was just a simple form. I really thought it was going to be like something very simple of saying like, what is your name? What is your date of birth? What is your address? And then say, okay, you can schedule for a biometric. But it was a very long application because it asks about your criminal records, asks about your family history.
And what we'll do is that we'll create another mock process where we can go ahead and kind of walk people through it because it is super important. But even going back to this Lincoln-Riley Act, right, which is the focus of today's topic, what people need to understand is that even green card holders are at risk. Everyone who's a green card holder, and we need to maybe step up our efforts into letting green card holders know that this is a time to become a citizen for so many different reasons. There has been even publications about, people who are traveling with their green cards and staying beyond a certain amount of time period abroad and how that can bring consequences as well. So it's just so many different things that are happening, as far as enforcement priorities. Because again, the law was always the law. It's just immigration didn't enforce it, or they weren't looking out for those things. But now we're living in times where everything is very restrictive, and you have to walk, in a straight line, pretty much. Try to comply as much as possible so that you can stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and that's the truth. The law has always been there. Nothing has changed differently other than enforcement, stricter enforcement. Some different administration, it may be a lot relaxed rules of how you enforce that particular law. And then so now in this administration, they're like, no, we want you to enforce everything. Just like in the prior year when he was enforcing the public charge rule. They had created a whole separate application for that you had to do to comply with the public charge rule. But they have incorporated that into all the new forms now. But then there's still enforcement. So we do want people to comply with the law. Don't just say, oh, I'm not going to register. I'm going to have to do that. If you don't, you'll be subjected to a fine and imprisonment.
And again, I speculate, right, a lot about what's going to happen. But even with the IRS rules, with the real ID, I mean, it's very, people need to understand that immigration is national security.
Yes.
So the government has at its disposal all the tools necessary to make sure they keep the country safe.
Yes.
And one of those things is knowing who is in the country. Mm-hmm. Again, I believe that's part of, the reason why in the cartels being declared terrorist organizations, and even the whole aspect of the human trafficking, which is a real aspect of this. Traffickers are getting paid to break the law. Drug trafficking, weapon trafficking, money laundering, sexual exploitation, abuse of children. This is something that's very serious. So sometimes we get the arguments from people that say, well, I'm not a criminal. Or we had someone today say, well, I came with a visa, so I'm not illegal. Or I'm in a different situation than who crossed the border. Nobody's better than anyone.
That's true.
If you came in through that plane and you overstayed your visa, you were undocumented. You're in the same immigration situation and risk as someone who came to the border, whether they were detained or not. So this whole thing about divide and conquer, or who's better, who's worse, the best thing for you to do is to start a process, have something pending, and obviously, be in the hands of a professional that can help you navigate through the different avenues of becoming and complying with the law. You have to comply with the law. There's no way around it.
That's true. You do have to comply, and it's almost the same thing when we were at a school doing a speech and talking about even the Alien Registration Act, and the person's like, "Why would I need to tell people to do that? Like that's not." But it's the law. You don't need to tell people not to break the law. You tell them to comply with the law, so that that person don't fall in the wrong trap. And that is true. If you come on a plane, if you came on a visa, you got 6 months and you overstayed, you still illegal. It doesn't matter. You're still in the same boat as somebody who came through the border and and didn't get caught, or somebody who came through the border got caught. Because you have no status, you're still in the same boat of the other person. But people always say, "Oh, I'm not illegal. My visa is still valid."
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good one too. My visa is valid. I still have my visa. No, you overstayed. Your visa died the moment you go beyond that 6 months. Even though your visa may expire 2028,
Right.
it's no longer good. So you don't have any status.
And it's, we hear it all here. Why is Trump coming after hardworking people?
Yeah.
I didn't kill nobody. I didn't steal nothing. I'm just working to provide for my family. I have a business. But again, you're being told no pay taxes. I mean, it's just so crazy, all the contradicting information that's being out there. But ultimately, what we want to tell you is that here at Noyes Associates, again, we are a firm of immigrants for immigrants. We know what you're going through. We know what it's like. We hear it on a daily basis, the stories, the frustrations, and ultimately the success that you can gain by working with someone who you're going to sign a contract with and who's going to be with you till the end. Again, no one is perfect, but what we can guarantee you is quality, is the experience that we have to achieve that goal that you have put for yourself. Again, if you made the sacrifice to come to this country, to be here for all these years, let's fight to give you that stability that you deserve.
No, that is true. It's about let's fight for your future, your children's future, your family's future. And then also, even if you don't want to fight and you just wanted to go to, I've been here for 20 years. I think I'm good. I'm ready to go back home. That is also okay. Let's just figure out how you can do a plan. You always have to have a plan about what the options you want to take, whether you want to apply for something if you have the opportunity. If you don't have the opportunity to apply for something in the U.S., seek out maybe somewhere else, another country.
That's it. So again, my name is Juan and Shernette. We're from Noyes Associates. We want to make sure that you stay tuned every Tuesdays and Thursdays. We do this podcast. We're bringing you exciting content, and our social media you'll be able to see testimonies, stories, and so much more in our social media. We want to thank everyone who's tuned in. We are excited to finish up this week. Looking forward to our meeting at the end of this month to be able to forward and provide so many more resources that are available for our community to be united, for us to be united front in educating each other, empowering each other, and breaking this cycle of disinformation and of lack of action and neglect. We cannot let our neighbors or family members neglect themselves. So even if you're abroad and you have someone in the U.S., tell them to seek help. Tell them to do something, because the consequences of not acting are becoming every single day more and more grave. So if you want to make sure that you can have a future here in the U.S., please make sure that you are able to give yourself a fighting chance. So we want to thank you guys for everything that you have done to promote this video, to share this content. Always, thank you. And I want to say hi to Mr. Neil Isaacs, who's been tuning in, Diomedes Esteves, tuning in from the Virgin Islands as well. Everyone on TikTok, we appreciate you always being present.
Yes, no, thank you. We do appreciate that. And we appreciate your trust in tuning in and listening to us. And even our clients, they're trusting us to advise them on the options that are available for them. And this podcast is just to educate, but at the same time, tell you stories of people who have success and those who also have failures. Because just this week, we had a client who went away for the first, wasn't able to go back home for 20 plus years, was able to go back. And while she was home, enjoying her time with her family, people were sending her videos telling her, oh, you cannot come back. If you come back, they're going to turn you right back. And so now it's like she's enjoying her family, but also have fear and panic. Like, oh my gosh, I came out, but am I going to get back in? Because I'm being told, I'm getting these videos, these viral videos that are telling people, like, if you leave, you can't come back. And when she was able to come back in, she was so rejoiceful and excited, but happy that she was able to be with her family, be with her kids, and just enjoying being home, a place where she hadn't been in 21 years. And those stories, again, is really what makes us do what we do. It's just helping families, building that gap and that bridge to be able to come together and build a future. So thank you guys for tuning in. You got questions, you can always ask us your questions. We're open to answer them as much as we can. But thank you for everyone on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube for tuning in. Tito, please get well. We miss you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. And we will be in touch next Tuesday for another episode of the Portis Corner. Again, this is your podcast where we discuss news, events, and seek to motivate you more than anything to make sure that you believe in your dreams, that you fight for your dream and for your family, and do not give up.
Yes.